we now have another verdict against the men who murdered Ahmaud Arbery. So there was a federal hate crimes trial against the McMichaels, as well as their neighbor, William Roddy Bryan. This is after the original trial. Now, this hate crime trial, that's a federal trial, and it actually ended on Tuesday. Travis McMichael, his father Gregory, and William Bryan were convicted of being motivated by racial animus after they had decided to chase and gun down the 25-year-old black man who was jogging in the neighborhood. So now they're already looking at life in prison for the murder at the state level. The men also faced federal charges of interfering with Arbery's right to use a public street because of his race and attempted kidnapping. So the McMichaels were also charged with firearm offenses related to the fatal shooting. Travis McMichael, of course, had fired the fatal shot that killed Ahmaud Arbery. So now that verdict, all three men guilty on all of counts, was reached in less than 4 hours. This was very, very clear. And I want to go through some of the evidence that prosecutors... Now remember that the first case was not about race. It didn't, that was not brought into the actual trial proceedings. It really just looked at the defense that they claimed, like, oh no, we were just defending the neighborhood against crime. And then, well, we tracked this guy down because, we were trying to do a citizen's arrest on Ahmaud Arbery because he seemed very suspicious and there had been some robberies. That's what that case was about. This was purely about whether or not they had a racial motive to chase him down. And so now the government presented evidence from 20 different witnesses, many of whom testified about racially derogatory text messages, social media posts, and remarks from these three men, in which, of course, they disparaged black people. Because, of course. So now, let me go here and talk about some of that evidence. And one of the three men convicted in Arbery's murder didn't want his daughter dating a black man and would regularly refer to him as the N-word. Another shared a meme that claimed that white Irish slaves were treated worse than any other race in the U.S. Not true. And the third, Travis, whom a lot of the prosecution focused on, for good reason. Now, Travis spoke about killing black people and wrote in a message that he loved his job because 0 N-words work with me. I don't have to work with them. Oh, well, there you go. He also wrote in another text conversation a few months before the shooting, quote, "We used to walk around committing hate crimes all day." It's almost as if they're racist. I mean, there's no question here. No question. Now, obviously, of course, being a racist isn't a crime in itself. We understand that, right? And it's actually a difficult case to prove that, well, sure, you may have racist thoughts, but did that mean that you used those racist thoughts to commit a crime against black people? That's what they had to prove, okay? And so the evidence, though, was overwhelming. Now, here's what Travis, again, had said about committing violence against black people. Quote, "I say shoot all of them." He commented on a video that showed a group of mostly black teenagers attacking a white teenager. Now, should they be attacking a white teenager? No, of course not. Is the solution to shoot them all? No, of course not. But apparently to him, that is the solution. He also appeared to advocate running over protesters in response to a video of a car hitting black women. When somebody sent McMichael a video in which a black man plays a prank, just a prank, on a white man, he then used a racial slur, saying that he would kill the prankster. Of course. So you have a spoken desire to kill black people. But again, that's not all of it. That's part of the picture. What really got more personal, I think, is how Travis McMichael, now remember, part of his defense is, well, I had my gun stolen from me out of my car. Okay, the car that you left unlocked, sure. Now, he blames Ahmaud Arbery for that theft, specifically. Oh yeah, I think that black guy, he stole my gun. Oh, really? Okay. Now, that just happened to have coincided, of course, when there was a white person that was suspected of a similar theft from a neighbor. And so, white guy suspected of theft from a neighbor, similar circumstances, and there was, crime in that neighborhood, right? But instead of saying, hey, that guy is suspicious. You think that he's the same guy? The guy that stole my gun is the same guy that stole yours? Instead, they go, well, it had to be the black guy. Of course it had to be the black guy. Oh, of course. Yes, because he had preconceived biases against black people. So it felt like it had to be him. Well, he was running through the neighborhood, and he'd stopped in this house that was under construction and didn't do anything there, but I'm pretty sure he was up to something. Now, on Wednesday, they also heard jurors heard testimony from a friend who remembered Travis McMichael being angry about that incident. All right. Now, the friend, Derek Thomas, recounted sending Travis McMichael a video on the day the gun was stolen, which showed a black person lighting a firecracker. McMichael texted back an angry response, asked to relay the message out loud in court for the jury. He hesitated, asking the prosecutor, quote, "Am I required by law to read that?" Now, let me just stop there. If you're hesitant to read this in court, you're looking at it, a text that had been sent between you two, and you're like, oh man, this looks really bad. Do I have to? Are you going to make me read this? Because this is really bad. Well, that should tell you something, shouldn't it? Now, what was the message? Well, it involved the N-word, and basically was this: the defendant had wished that the black man's head had been blown clean off. Seems to have a hatred of black people, doesn't he? Clear hatred and a desire to do violence against him. And so, well, that's what happened. Arbery didn't steal his gun. Arbery didn't commit any crimes when he was jogging. Didn't do that, but because he was black and because McMichael had his prior, preconceived racist notions, he looked at him and said, well, he had to have done something. And it was up to me. It was up to us to stop him from doing those things. And not calling the police. No. We had to act as our own police force. It seems to be all about racism. Now, one more point here. And that's the family. We never would have gotten this trial, understand, if the family hadn't been brave enough to stand up for themselves to get justice. Now, it had been reported previously that the Justice Department was originally trying to get a plea deal now with the McMichaels on these hate crime charges. Now, the Arbery family was enraged. They're like, no. You don't understand. We're here to get justice. We're here to get... Our family member was murdered, and we intend to get justice by a racist mob. Okay, they were murdered by a mob of racist people. And so now that agreement included a provision that would have allowed the men to serve 30 years in federal prison as opposed to state prison. They believed, Arbery's parents said that deal would be favorable to the defendants. No, we asked for justice here, not for these people to go off easy. And so now, legal experts, by the way, when that conversation was happening, said that, well, look, the reason they went for it is because these hate crimes cases are very difficult to win. And so, if we get a plea deal, then they stand a lesser chance of being acquitted. But the family held firm. And they said, no, I said justice. And they won. And they won. And they won. Now, look, on the one hand, it shouldn't be considered a huge victory because this guy was super obviously racist. But on the other hand, looking at how the justice system generally treats African Americans, especially the death, and especially when you looked around this case, how it took so long for there to be justice in the first place, for the authorities to actually intervene and do what they're supposed to. And of course, you had the McMichaels leaking out this video to try to turn the conversation into their side. You had prosecutors that were basically had to recuse themselves or get removed because they had biases towards the father, Gregory McMichael, who was a former police officer, or former law enforcement official. And so you had all of these factors that were in the way. And that's what makes it truly outstanding, that we actually have a modicum, a measure of justice. Now that, of course, is never going to bring Ahmaud Arbery back. He's still dead throughout all of this. And that's the biggest tragedy of all. But there is some measure of justice. And I do hope that this sends a message. It sends a message, okay? That, look, you know, this is not going to be tolerated anymore. That we're going to continue to fight to get justice for people like Ahmaud Arbery.